For finance team that will thrive definitely in this new era, they will be generators of the business story, not just recorders. The best CFOs today are not just stewards of capital. They are strategic advisors who connect every decision to value and ultimately ensure that top business owners and investors make the right decision to steer the business in the right direction. Question has often been asked, why is second half of the year such a critical window for finance executives to step back and reassess, their plans for the year? H2 clearly, gives every finance executive the opportunity to pause and recalibrate strategy. It provides the opportunity to reflect on performance as well as performance analysis and planning in the same frame. H2 is then a critical window to take actions. Media performance signals, are now clear. You can see where the business is coming from and where it's heading. You have actuals for the last 6 months and not just forecasts. You're able to identify gaps in revenue, costs, margins, cash flows. They are now more apparent, having looked at what has happened in the past 6 months. Compared to Q4, where you are mainly in a wrap-up position, cost corrections happen in H2, which are more feasible. H2 provides, the opportunity to transit from a reactive to a proactive approach, shifting strategy to improve year-end outcomes. You start planning for next year's budget also in H2. As you have planning insights and, next year's strategy begins to take shape, budgets, directions, and discussions continue to happen. It gives you an opportunity to realign the FP&A strategy for the organization. So you're able to lead, with insights. You're able to reset performance metrics as well, recalibrate what matters from cash flow to growth, update on how success is measured, shifts in ARR, your gross margin, your CAC efficiency, and all that. Strategic hiring also happen within the same period. You're able to restructure and also refocus on capital allocation, making sure that you put your funds, where you're getting the best use for them. You decide how to deploy, preserve, or raise your capital before the end of H2. Investor and board engagement also peaks, in H2, where their strategic fundraising conversations happen. These often tend to take more pace in H2. Finance must therefore prepare narrative, numbers, and forward guidance, which feed off the data that has been generated in H1. Operational excellence and risk management, reviews also happen clearly in H2. You do a lot of stress testing. You want to check your models, your cash flows to be sure that before the end of the year, they actually still make sense and they are valid. So the finance role in governance and risk is most valuable before the storm and not after the storm. In the second half of the year, finance executives must rethink budgets with precision and agility, focusing clearly on what truly drives outcome, not just what was planned. At this stage, budgeting becomes less about strict adherence to, the budget that was planned, but more about reallocation, prioritization, as well as strategic realignment. Shift from strategic planning to dynamic reallocation of resources. You will let the data and not assumptions at this moment drive spend decisions. You prioritize, the mission critical things that are very mission critical and ROI positive projects. You make cash efficiency the guiding principle. Invest in visibility, not just output. If you're struggling to get clarity on what's working, then invest in reporting systems and analytical tools that will sharpen decision making. Visibility investment today prevent reactive cuts or missed targets tomorrow. So you allocate budgets to improve forecasting accuracy, spend tracking, and business unit accountability. So today, in terms of that budgeting allocation, you want to look at the principle and the outcome. You're doing your allocation, spend it based on what's impacting revenue, margins, or where the mission is clearest. Agility over perfection. Your plans can flex, but intent must be clear. Cash efficiency. Every dollar spent must stretch longer or return faster, improving the runway. Focus on customer value. Invest where it enhances acquisition, retention, or expansion of the customer base. Then cross-functional alignment is very key. Ensure that both product, sales and finance and all other departments within the organization are all working for the same outcome.
Everybody makes payroll mistakes. Not with the right payroll software. Stay compliant and stay confident with SeamlessHR.
So there's a growing expectations for finance teams to move beyond reporting data to actively advising this business. Question is, how do we see this playing out? The growing expectation is that finance should no longer just report what happened, but help shape what happens next. This shift from being the scorekeeper to strategic advisor is not just cosmetic, it's structural, cultural, and technological in many ways. Here's how that shift is playing out across leading finance team and what it also means for a SaaS or a tech-enabled business. Traditional finance and modern finance. You can compare traditional finance was doing a lot of things like reactive reporting, while modern finance provides proactive insights. Traditional finance, you focus on monthly closures and variance analysis, while in modern finance, you're looking at real-time forecasting, scenario and modeling. Cost control and compliance were the key forte for traditional finance. Today, modern finance is about value creation and strategic support. Finance as back office was what we saw with traditional finance. Today, finance is seen as strategic partner in the modern finance era. So we see 5 clear ways that this shift is playing out in practice. 1, you're moving from backward to forward-looking analysis. You're no longer just focusing on variance analysis, but you want to see what's happening. Embedded finance in business units. Every business unit you're doing about strategic partnership. Then finance work in isolation. These days, you have to work with every department. So we're seeing more of strategic business reporting going on, using tools which enables faster and smarter decision making and collaboration. A lot of FP&A tools are out there which are being used to automate workflows to ensure that finance is no longer a bottleneck, but an enabler of speed. Then you're rethinking the metrics to align with strategy. You're prioritizing metrics that will actually reflect, the business phase. Things like net revenue retention, your burn rate, your CAC payback. All these metrics are now being, looked at in modern era. A scaling business may shift from booking obsession to, thinking about net retention and being cash flow positive, becoming storytellers, not just analysts. Now, finance crafts its narratives around data, explaining the why and the so what. So finance builds on credibility and influence through the insight and not just information being provided. What's driving this evolution? We see clearly there's been increased demand for agile data-driven decision-making. Less time, is being spent on post-mortem audits. Leaders want predictive guidance. There are also better tools out there to support automation, dashboards, collaborative planning, all at the same time. There's cross-functional pressure, different teams expect finance to speak their language. So everyone in finance must understand the business on a larger scale. Investor expectation is also key. Finance must link operations to long-term value creation so that when the numbers are presented to the investors, the story can be seen. Question is, how do you accelerate these shifts on any finance team? A key part is upskilling, develop the team to understand the GTM, the product customer success, redesign your reporting cadence, to ensure that you're doing less of backward-looking analysis, invest in tools, move to platforms that enable real-time reporting, collaborative planning as well as scenario modeling, establish embedded finance roles, assign analysts, to this core business unit to provide the data and reward insights, not just accuracy. Shift the team culture from did the numbers reconcile to did we drive better decision making. I think in final thoughts, you want to say that finance thrives, in this new era with becoming narrators and not just reporting numbers. The best CFOs today are not just stewards of capital; they are strategic advisors, who shape business decision and advise both investors and top management on ways to move the business forward.
What's the secret behind high-performing teams? Meet Becky, Abiola, and Taiwo, HR pros who know the answer.
I track goals and growth with ease. Running payroll has been error-free.
I manage people, data, decision in one place.
Now that's seamless.
So in conclusion, for any finance leader, H2 is more than just the second half of the year. It is the most tactical half. You're far enough along, to know what is working and what needs to change. And you're early enough to make the needed changes and also improvements. You're also in a unique position to influence the results of next year by the actions you take, today, especially in H2. For finance team that will thrive definitely in this new era, they will be generators of the business story, not just recorders. The best CFOs today are not just stewards of capital. They are strategic advisors who connect every decision to value and ultimately ensure that top business owners and investors make the right decision to steer the business in the right direction. Thank you.